Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com, and we are here today with lesson number 9 about having that great career in engineering. And what we're going to be talking about today is what to expect from a site visit or a site interview. What do I mean by a site visit? Well, if you're a college student, your first interaction with the company is probably going to come from a campus recruiter. The recruiter will be on campus. He'll sign you up for interviews. He'll interview everyone. He or she will interview everyone. And then after interviewing everyone, if they find someone that impresses them and that seems to be a good match, their skills match what their needs are, that person will be invited for a site visit, which is basically a day-long set of interviews with the people that you would actually be working for and working with. If you already have a job and you're interviewing for a new job, then your first interview would probably be a site visit. So the site visit is a very important thing, and we need to know how to do a good job on these site interviews. First of all, if you're in college and you go through the campus interview, you might even on that first day start seeing signs of whether you are sort of in the running or not. Sometimes if you really impress them during that interview, and if you have a skill that they really need, they might invite you for a site visit right there during the interview. And that's a really, really good sign. They might say, hey, you know, this looks like a really good fit. Can we set something up to bring you out to the company? Okay, that would be really good. Sometimes they might not give you a site visit invitation right during the interview, but they might kind of like wait to the end of the day, and then they might, after interviewing everyone, then boom, give you one right away. Or it might come a week or two later. Okay, something else that they might do that would be a good sign, if they're interviewing you on campus and then invite you to lunch or dinner, that's a really good sign, because if they're interviewing a lot of people and they could only take one person to lunch or dinner, that's an indication that you're sort of in the running. Okay, now after you interview on campus, if you don't hear anything that day, there's probably one of three things that could happen. They could write you a real nice letter and say that you're not a good match for their needs at this time, and they put your resume on file. That, to be honest with you, is bad news. If you get that letter, then probably you're not going to hear from them, because they might put it in a file. I'm not sure what file they're putting it in. It might be the round file on the floor. Okay, so if they say they filed your resume, just let's be realistic, that's probably a bad sign. The second thing that they might do is they might just flat out tell you that they don't need you. Okay, that's a really bad sign. So don't need you, or not a good match at this time. That's not good. The third possibility is that they would invite you for a site interview. That's what you're looking for. Okay, so what would you expect on a site interview? All right, basically, if they're a local company, they would have you visit their facility. If they're not where your school is, they would fly you out to have an all-day interview. Now, what can you expect during this day? Likely, I think probably the norm is they would have somebody meet you and take you for breakfast. Now, there's three possibilities of who might take you for breakfast. It might be that a person from HR takes you to breakfast, a person from their personnel department takes you to breakfast. To me, it's not necessarily a bad sign, but it's probably a better sign than them not taking you to breakfast at all. But it's probably not the best sign. That I think that if they really want you, probably the potential person that's going to be your boss would take you to breakfast. So probably the best early indicator that things are serious would be if the person who is actually your potential boss takes you to breakfast. That's a good sign. Almost that good would be if a person that works for him takes you to breakfast. Maybe the boss is busy that day, but he sends one of his senior engineers or one of his trusted engineers to take you to breakfast. That's also a good sign. Okay, so you could probably expect someone to take you to breakfast. You could expect the day of your site visit to be between 8 and 16 interviews that you're going to do. You might have between 8 and 16 interviews during that day. Now, certainly you're going to interview with the person that potentially might be your boss. Okay, certainly that's a very important interview. But he will also have you interview with the people in his organization. So the people that work for him, you would probably also interview with. So let's say you interview with the potential boss. He might have you interview with 4 or 5 or 6 of the people in his organization. Also, it's likely, if this is an important job, it's likely that you will interview with your potential boss's boss. You know, that's kind of like the high level, the big cheese. You might get to go in and talk to the big cheese, because the big cheese doesn't want anybody to do something stupid, so he sort of likes to see people before they get hired. So you might get a job interview with the big cheese, and I think he's just trying to make sure that you look like that you're an okay guy. So you've got the potential boss, the potential boss's boss, the people in the potential boss's organization. Then also the boss has peers in the organization, people at his same level. He might have you interview with 3 or 4 of those, because the big cheese, he's going to want to hear from just more than one manager that this guy's reasonable, because man, I might need a failure analysis guy, and I'm just really wanting a guy, and so I'm kind of just going to take you because I need a guy real bad. Well, you hit big guy, he wants you to interview with several managers. Make sure everybody's kind of seeing you as a good guy, and then maybe some of the other people in their organization. So you see, you're having a lot of people look at you that day of the site view interview. And I will tell you something, every one of those interviews is important, because of the 8 to 16 people that you interview with, all it takes is one. And if one person just really doesn't like you and wants to throw a stink or wants to throw a fit, that's probably enough for you not to get a job offer. So it's important. You might think, well, I'm interviewing with this guy, and this guy isn't even in his organization, it doesn't matter that much. No, you need to make a good impression on every person that you interview with. You need to have a lot of enthusiastic support, and you've got to have nobody that's trying to, kill you. And so it's important to do good in all of those different interviews. What you've got to basically see is, what is your objective on this site visit? Your objective is to accomplish 4 things. And every one of them is important. But I'll start with the most important one. The first thing you want to do is you want to establish that you are not a jerk. Because if I work at a company, even if I'm kind of a normal working level guy, the last thing I want is another jerk in my organization. And so my antenna is going to be up, and I'm going to be kind of probing to see whether I think you're a jerk or not, because I've got enough jerks already that I got to work with. I don't need another one. So what you really need to do is, everybody that is interviewing you that day needs to see that you're a nice guy, not a jerk. Okay, I think what you want to come across as, confident, but not cocky, not arrogant, not big-headed. You want to be confident in your skills, but you don't want to come across as a know-it-all, as a windbag, as a blowhard, as someone who's always right, as someone who thinks they knows everything. Okay, yeah, you're confident in your skills, but you're not a jerk. Okay, the second thing that you want to establish is, you want to establish that you are technically competent. Okay, and so particularly as you're talking to other engineers in the organization, they're going to be asking you technical questions like, okay, here's a MOSFET transistor. How would you bias this thing up to have a feedback gain of blah, blah, blah? Okay, and you'd need to kind of sketch it out and do it. Or might ask you a question about AutoCAD. You know, how would you constrain dimensions of the base layer in an AutoCAD design? Might ask you something specific like that. Okay, just don't get long-winded, but show that you can sit and technically interact. I mean, you don't want to give one-word answers, but you don't want to go on for 20 minutes. But you want to show that you're in tune with them. You know what they're talking about. You know, you can sit and talk AutoCAD. You can talk transistor feedback. Yeah, you can talk those things. Okay, you want to show that you're technically competent and you're confident, but you're not a jerk. Okay, how do you handle questions that you don't know? Let's take the AutoCAD question. How do you constrain the base layer of an AutoCAD design? All right, let's say you don't know AutoCAD. Let's say that you know SolidWorks. Don't sit in BS. Don't try to fake it. Say, look, as I went through school, I learned SolidWorks. I did not learn AutoCAD. I have not used AutoCAD. If you guys use AutoCAD here, if I got a job offer, there was some potential for me to come here, then I would need to spend the time between now and then becoming an expert in AutoCAD, because I can go, I can learn, I know how to do it, I could learn it. But right now, I don't know how to answer your question. Okay, you see, it's okay that you can't answer, just don't try to fake it. And if you don't know that, tell them something that you do know. You don't want to just act like, if they're asking you about AutoCAD and you act like you've never used any CAD software before, that would be a bad thing. So if you can't answer what they ask you, answer something related. Okay. Third thing is, so number one, you're not a jerk. Number two, you're technically competent. The third thing that you want to establish is that you're a hard worker. Okay. How would you establish that you're a hard worker? You might say something like, oh, wow, what I have found in doing projects is I'm the most effective if I can get an early start on the day. What time do you guys open up? I mean, would I be able to come in an hour ahead of start time just to kind of get my day organized, overview, check what I did the day before a little bit, and map out the day, and maybe do a little work on the really critical things I have? Because sometimes I find it's just quieter in the morning, and I can really get a lot more productive during the day if I can come in an hour early. That would show that you're a hard worker. Now, don't do that if you're lying. I mean, if you're not planning on doing that, don't do it. But I want a hard worker, and if you can take an opportunity to show me that you're a hard worker, that puts you ahead of the rest of the people. Okay, so number one, you are not a jerk. Number two, you're technically competent. Number three, you're a hard worker. And number four, you understand what is important. You understand what the bottom line is. And so you need to understand that I am not looking for a person that is going to be busy. I'm looking at a person that can impact me. And so you want to make sure that you show them that you understand what impact is. And so, like, if you're looking and you're interviewing for a failure analysis job for an integrated circuit company, and they're showing you the lab, you could say, well, I imagine you're doing failure analysis because you've got failures, and therefore you've got to get those issues resolved as quickly as possible. How do you handle scheduling the equipment? Because I know that you've got more than one engineer that needs to use this equipment, and so how do you ensure that you're solving problems as quickly as possible in the way that you're scheduling the equipment? Okay, you see, that's a good question, because you're showing them, what are you thinking? Man, failure analysis, you got to get to the bottom of those problems quickly. Or design, how do you maximize that you go, in your organization, how do you maximize that you go from concept to initial, first draft design as quickly as possible? What's the process that we get to that first fab as quickly as we can? So talk the lingo, talk things that show that you understand the bottom line, you understand the importance of impact. What is impact? Getting the problem solved, getting working parts out the door, getting things, man, if you're in the test area, when parts come in, you get that testing done as quickly as you possibly can. So an understanding of the importance of accurate work, of correct work, of timely work, of getting to solutions quickly, and getting to solutions on minimum money. You see, talk the bottom line, because they don't teach you the bottom line in college. It's just, you turn your homework in, you get a grade back, and sometimes it's just about getting the right number in the box, and it doesn't really reflect the importance of bringing it home to a real solution, something sitting in your hand that works. Okay. So what does the day look like? Okay, we talked about that somebody will probably take you to breakfast. You'll have 8 to 16 interviews, and they'll certainly probably take you out to lunch. Make sure you go back and look at the last video about an interview luncheon or an interview meal, because man, you really don't want to blow it during that meal. And if you're an engineer, you could be kind of socially awkward, so make sure that you don't do anything during that meal that would cause an embarrassment or cause you to look bad. Okay. Now, at the end of the day, you'll probably have a wrap-up meeting with either the person that is potentially your boss or with the human resources person, and kind of be looking for signs there, be looking for, kind of buy signals. And it could be that if you impress the boss, he's going to want to come in and he's going to want to bring you in and he's going to want to start making his sales pitch. And so that's a good sign if he brings you in and starts talking to you about what a great place it is to work and all the wonderful things about working there, that he's sending you a buy sign. Okay, if he starts talking about benefits. In this case, it's good to listen. It's good to take notes. Also, I think this is in general something good, that when you're interviewing during these day interviews, during these field trips, take an engineering pad and be making notes as you're interviewing, because if you just sit there and you're not making any notes and he's making notes and you're not, makes you look kind of bad, like you don't care. So show your good engineering form and be taking notes during these interviews. Okay, so what I think is, it's a great sign if during the site trip towards the end of the day, if they start giving you a buy signal. What I try not to do is on the day of the job interview, I do not want to ask for anything, and I do not want to say anything about expectations. What I want to do is I want to make them want me. And therefore, I don't start talking, as the person that is being interviewed, I don't start talking about salary. I don't start talking about benefits. I don't start talking about perks. That day is my day to impress my potential employer. Okay, so things that I would not bring up during the interview is things like salary, things like perks, things like different benefits or those types of things. You see, what I want to do is I want to make them want me and then let them bring it up. Okay, if during the interview they bring it up, I try to not go there that much, because you want to negotiate from a position of strength. And if you go in there and they like you and it looks like they really want to hire you, and at the end of the day they're starting to give you the buy signals, be careful what you say, because that is not your strongest point, because you don't have a job offer yet. Okay, your strongest position on negotiation is after they give you the offer. All right, so and therefore at the end of the day, I tend to be kind of careful in how specific I am. So if at the end of the day the boss said, look, we are really impressed with you, we think we got a good match, if we were able to give you an offer, what are your salary expectations? What I would say is that I really am impressed with what I saw here, that the thing that's the most important to me is the ability to work in a dynamic environment with a great group of people, and I'm seeing a lot of things here that are really impressing me. On salary, what I would hope is that you would field your most competitive offer, because I do have to support my family, I do have to eat, so I would hope you would give me your most competitive offer. But the things that are most important to me are the job and blah 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 blah. So you see, I would kind of dodge the question a little bit, because what I want to know is, I want to know how strong my hand is. Let's say I get back and I've got 4 offers on the table and every one of them seems like they really want me. Well, then I can sort of start really playing the negotiation game about what type of benefits I get and what type of salary that I might get. Okay, but if I don't have any job offers and I'm just hoping to get one, man, I just want to get in the door. I don't want to start setting such high expectations that I might not get an offer. So you want to negotiate from a position of strength, and that position of strength is after they have made their first job offer. During the site visit, I don't want to talk about what I want. I don't want to talk about special privileges. I don't want to talk about salary. All right, now just like I said on the interview, I think it's really important, as much as you can, make notes during the day of the questions that they're asking you and who you talk to and all of that sort of thing. Because like also, I mean, who you talk to, like if you talk to Joe and then afterwards, the boss calls you up and say, hey, I want you to talk some more to Joe, and you don't remember who Joe is, man, make notes. collect those business cards, stay organized so that you remember who you talked to and what you talked about. And then also, after the day is over and you're back in your room or wherever, get out a notepad and make notes of what you think went well, what didn't go well, the things that sort of caught you off guard, maybe the things that you got a reaction that indicated your answer didn't go over well with them. Kind of make notes so that you can always be doing better, you can always be improving. But the good news is, I think that if you get invited for a site visit, if you're a college student and you get invited to a site visit, it's almost like the job is yours to lose, because they would not have invited you if they did not want someone with your skills. And so at that point, you just want to make sure that you don't blow it. And man, I can't tell you how important it is, this point of not being a jerk. And so, like, you could think, you could go in there and convince them that you are the best failure analysis person in the world, or you could go in and convince them that you're a competent failure analysis person and that you are not a jerk. That would be more important, because sometimes during an interview, a person is trying so hard to impress you how great they are, and they sort of come across as a jerk. So you want to come across as a nice guy who is competent. You don't have to come across as the greatest thing on the face of the earth. All right, so I hope this has been helpful. Leave your comments below. You guys, if you're out in industry and you're involved in bringing people in for site visits, or if you are an interviewer for your company when technical people come in, or if you're involved in this in any way, leave your comments. We need to get different perspectives. Let's have this a little bit of a community develop here to help people of how to do better in interviewing and getting jobs. Okay, really appreciate your comments. Paul McWhorter, TopTechBoy.com. If you like this, think about giving us a thumbs up. Think about subscribing to the channel. Think about sharing this with other people. I will talk to you guys later.